Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Learn to Read Tarot with me. This is a relatively new series on my channel where I bring you into my brain and sort of talk you through how I interpret a spread using a given deck and a given spread and sort of how I string cards together to get a finished reading or finished meaning. The idea of this series is really meant to give you some practical sort of experience playing with cards and seeing how you can, layer meanings and really give yourself a reading or give a friend and family member a reading, something like that. So you can take your sort of foundational knowledge of tarot and build on it and put it into practical use. So if you are brand spanking new to tarot, if this is your first sort of video you're clicking on of mine that has educational content, or even if you just are still really new and haven't really learned a base meaning of the cards yet, I definitely recommend you start with my Tarot with Training Wheels series. I will have a link to that in the description box down below. Or if you want to go even more in depth with your foundational tarot knowledge, I recommend my website course, which is Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners. That is a series that is just like Tarot with Training Wheels, but just goes a lot more in depth. So those courses I created, one free and one on my website, so that you could really just start from scratch and build some basic understanding of the meaning of the cards. And in fact, the exercises that I share with you in this series work really well with either your Training Wheels deck you create during the Tarot with Training Wheels series or your DIY tarot deck you create during my Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners course. So in either case, you could use that deck that you've modified or created in this series. But I hope what you'll do is do these exercises along with me and see kind of what your experiences are like and what you get out of it. But with all of that said, I've been heavily drawing from the requests that you guys are leaving for me in the comments on these videos to decide what deck I'm going to pull and what spread we're going to do. Today, we're going to be working with a 3-card spread, physical, emotional, and spiritual. I'm trying to build a reading on that. This is a kind of general spread, and the deck that I've chosen to use is the Good Karma Tarot. This was requested. It is a really inexpensive mass market tarot deck that's modern and diverse and clear and has some really excellent symbology, but without feeling really cluttered or esoterically heavy. This is a really accessible deck, and it's one that I do recommend to beginners. I think the guidebook that comes along with this deck is also really excellent, and I really enjoy the artwork and the depictions of the cards, and I think it's easy to see what you need to see as far as the meanings go in this particular deck. It's also incredibly affordable. So I will have a link to this deck in the description box down below if you want to check it out. But it is, like I said, it's mass market, so it's easily available. You can find it on Amazon or at a local bookseller, but it is a great little deck. And again, the 3-card spread we're going to be doing today is the physical, emotional, spiritual. So the idea is to kind of do a bit of a check-in with yourself. Now you can do a general check-in, or you can check in about a particular situation and how it's impacting you physically, emotionally, or mentally, and spiritually. So you can look at it as a general or, again, more specific. Today, what I'm going to do is we're gonna do a few sample readings, I think is what I'd like to do, where we look at it generally and then in answer to specific questions. So the reason I like 3-card spreads so much for learning to create a tarot reading or learning to actually practically read the tarot is because it's not so intense and it's easier to create, I think, a finished meaning from just a few cards than from a really big spread. And I love big spreads, don't get me wrong, but I think when you're learning the tarot, 3-card spreads are really great to just kind of get your feet wet, start to really kind of dip into it. And I think 3-card readings are sometimes sold a little short because the reality is that with a 3-card reading, you can go quite deep if you choose. You can really sit with each card and get a lot from that card, or you can be really quick and fast and loose about it. It's totally going to be up to you how much time you want to spend. And with a 3-card spread, you've got flexibility to either do a quick, fast and loose reading or something really in depth. So I like the flexibility of it. The idea to me between physical, emotional, and spiritual is to look at sort of the material reality of the situation or of how it's affecting you in a tangible way, how it's affecting you internally, sort of mentally and emotionally. And when we look at the spiritual aspect, to me, that's kind of like your higher self, or what's in your best interest, or how is it affecting your greater good, that kind of thing, those kind of broader concepts. You can take that to a much more woo place if you choose, right? You could take it to be like advice from your spirit guides or advice from ancestors or angels or deity if you work with a god or goddess or something like that. So you can definitely use this spread in a number of ways. But anyways, we're going to start off with just kind of a general, practical, grounded sort of life personal checkup. And so I'm just going to pull 3 cards with the assumption that I'm doing just a general reading, just to check in. How am I doing physically? How am I doing mentally and emotionally? How am I doing spiritually? What do I need to know about these 3 areas of my life? And we'll do the reading first that way, and then we'll see where we go from here. So I've shuffled the cards. I'm just going to split the deck. That's what I like to do. And I'm going to pull 3 cards. Oh, excellent. Just what I love to see. We have the Tower, the 3 of Swords. Wow, this reading. And the Ace of Wands. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm going to zoom us in so we can get a clearer view of the 3 cards in question. And let's talk about it. So first, let me give you what I think are sort of some base meanings for each card, and then we're going to build that into the reading. We're going to interpret each one, all that good stuff. So first off, the Tower for me is very much about an unmaking or undoing or a destruction of a way of thinking or something going on in your life that is like breaking apart, and ultimately you need to start over with, right? There's an unmaking so that you can start fresh. The 3 of Swords to me is, and there's a lot of debate about the 3 of Swords specifically, because the Swords is the realm of the mind, and the 3 numerologically is often associated with expansion, with growth, with learning. At least for me, it is. And so for me, the 3 of Swords being that we're seeing growth and expansion, but in the mind suit, to me, this often speaks to mental growth, mental learning. So I often look at learning a lesson being one of the major themes of this card for me personally. So one of my favorite keywords for this card is lesson. And then we go over to the Ace of Wands. And in the Ace of Wands, we have, for me, a keyword is often inspiration, impetus, that sort of thing. This like initial like spark of excitement over something, or again, inspiration. So I like inspiration for the Ace of Wands. We'll see where we go with this. So let's real time come back over to the Tower. So this position in the 3 card spread was physical. So we have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Okay. So in the physical realm, in the material realm, I have the Tower. So if I was doing a checkup on my life, like how are things going? I'd be like, oh, well, materially, something tangible in your life is in the process of falling apart. Now, you can get really mundane with this. What if my dishwasher breaks today, right? Knocking on wood. I really don't want my dishwasher to break today. But you can take this very literal because this is a physical, tangible reality card. I'm looking at what actual material thing or physical or tangible thing in my life is kind of going wrong right now. It could be that I twist my ankle because that is a physical thing. Now, these are also very predictive type things. So I'm going to bring it back to the more sort of personal growth aspect and say something material in my life is in the process of kind of coming undone or being unmade. And so I would ask myself, how am I feeling about my material reality right now? And for me personally, my material reality actually feels pretty solid. How am I feeling physically? And then I realize, oh, wait, I spent all day yesterday traversing around, like at the time I'm filming this, I spent all day yesterday, like literally about 7 hours on my feet, walking around, doing some shopping with a friend. And I'm like, okay, so physically today, I am in a position of like feeling like I've overdone it. Like I'm feeling a little wrecked physically, right? It was just a lot. It was a lot. It gets very tiring. So it could be that physically that's what's going on for me. So if I was doing this reading for myself, I might look at that aspect and go, that makes sense. I'm definitely feeling a sense of like things are not working the way they normally would because I overdid it yesterday. And it's interesting to look at it in that context when you consider that prior to the Tower, we experience in the order of the major arcana cards, we have the Devil card. And the Devil card is often about the temptation to overdo, to kind of get tunnel visioned and maybe do things that aren't the best for us in that moment. So it makes sense that I might be having a bit of a Tower experience following such a busy full day where I may have overextended myself physically just a bit, right? So that makes sense. So physically, that makes sense for me in my life in this moment. When I go over to mental, emotional, we have the Lesson card, and I'm going to kind of piggyback on what I've already said about having overdone it yesterday physically, walking around as much as I did. Going over to the 3 of Swords, to me this is a lesson card, and the depiction is often 3 swords stabbing into a heart. And numerologically, because I see this as a lesson learned kind of card, and because of the associated sort of emotions we might have with, say, 3 swords stabbing a heart, there's an emotional component as well. So for me, when I think of the realm of mental and emotional, and we have the 3 of Swords, which to me merges mental emotional. That's super fascinating to me that that's the card that came up. But anyway, the Three of Swords in this case, I would say a lesson learned the hard way, which is typically how I look at the Three of Swords. Usually we've overstepped, or we've done something, or we've had a negative experience, or maybe somebody's hurt our feelings, so we've had to learn something the hard way. We've had an experience that has taught us something, but it hasn't necessarily been fully pleasant. And so if I piggyback on my reading of the Tower and seeing as how I physically overdone it, then I would say the lesson learned the hard way is that maybe the next time I decide I need to go shopping, I probably really need to like rein myself in a little. And so maybe the Three of Swords like is reminding me that, oh, hey, you're not 15 anymore. Like if you spend your, that much time being super, super active all day long, it will have an effect. So maybe you need to learn to pace yourself, so I could definitely look at it that way. And then we move over to the spiritual card, or to me, like the what's in your highest good kind of card. And we have the Ace of Wands, which one of my favorite words for this is inspiration. And I'm going to look at this through the lens of what my highest self would tell me, what my advice would be from the higher self. And to me, this is very much a call out on me getting caught up in the moment. And I hope I can explain how I got here. But basically, to me, the Ace of Wands is that like, it's not a mental card. It's like you have an idea. I want to say this right because idea is very Ace of Swords, but like something, you have an urge. That's a better way to put it. You have an urge and you're not, the Ace of Wands and what you do with that urge is still up in the air. And I feel like this card is specifically telling me like, yeah, you had the urge to go on this big day of shopping, but you didn't necessarily stop and think through what the ramifications were going to be if you overdid it, right? And I feel like this is kind of like a thing going, okay, it's good to go with your urges, but also you might need to remember to integrate some of this other stuff in the future if you're going to do that. Now, I realize in a way what I've done is I've stretched the meaning of these cards to apply to a situation because I got a really strong feeling from the Tower what this reading was going to be about. And then I used what I knew of the other cards to support or not support to add to that message, right? And I think this is the part that sometimes is tricky when you're learning to read tarot, is that there is a certain amount of, in my opinion, of sort of jailbreaking the system a little bit, right? Of sort of like playing with what things could mean and how they could apply to you and letting yourself not maybe always be so literal. Like the Ace of Wands could be creative inspiration, but that didn't really fit with what I was getting from the other two cards. So I had to think of what else could the Ace of Wands be? And to me, it was that impetus, that urge for action, for doing a thing. And that did apply because I did have an urge to do a thing and then I overdid the thing and I had some consequences, right? So I think to me, it was like a reminder that, hey, when you have that urge next time, you also need to think through the ramifications so you don't have the same experience again. Very kind of shallow casual, the way that I've gone about this, but it gives you an idea of sort of how you can play with the meanings of the cards to apply to your situation. So let's do something a little bit more targeted. And let's ask a question that we want to know what the material, emotional or mental, and spiritual sort of information, something we want to know that about. So let me see. Let's do a job question again, because that's a really relatable one. Actually, let's do this one instead. Let's say I just went out on a date. Now this is going to be, I need another person because I'm married and that's weird to think about. So let's say Sally. We're going to read for our pretend querent Sally. Let's say my friend Sally wants a 3-card reading. And she's asked the question, look, I just went out on this date with Joe. And I want to know, what our future is looking like together. Like, are we meant for each other? Like, is this going to be a good thing? And I'm like, okay, let's take a look at the physical or the material, mental, emotional, and spiritual answer to that question with this 3-card reading. So Sally wants to know if Joe's a good fit for her, like what's going on. Is it, should she continue to invest her time and her time and energy into Joe? Is he worth it? You know what I mean? So let's take a look and see what we have to say to Sally about Joe with our physical, emotional, spiritual 3-card reading. Oops. So we have Page of Cups, the Empress, and the Ace of Cups. So Sally's asked about Joe. So from a tangible perspective, from a material, physical perspective, we have the Page of Cups. And initially what that makes me think of for Sally and her date with Joe, especially here we see a bartender, which is super interesting. And I actually might be tempted to ask, what Joe does for a living, or if they went to a bar on their date, because this is such a specific image. And so here is where you start to play a little with just not only the base meaning of the card, which for me, the Page of Cups is somebody who's a bit of a dreamer, who's an optimist, who sometimes has rose-colored glasses on. And that's all true of this Page of Cups, but also this Page of Cups happens to be a bartender, which is super interesting to me, right? And it's like, oh, how does that play into this situation? So I might say, did you go to a bar? And she might say, yeah, I went to a bar. She might say, no, but we ordered drinks. Let's say that's what she says. And I might go, okay, it's really interesting because we have this bartender here, and I'd be curious to know how you feel about, like, was he the kind of guy when you were on this date with Joe, was he the kind of guy that he like stopped at a drink, or did he drink, a fair amount on the date? And this might be interesting because this could be a heads up that he might have a tendency towards not really realizing when he's had too much to drink. And again, I'm off to the races here. I've just taken this one image and I'm now off in multiple directions, but it's something that I could play off of because this is, again, a tangible or physical or body reality of asking about Joe, and it's relevant, right? So I might ask that. And I might say, that's something to kind of keep your eye on. That might be something to be aware of. But in general, I might say to Sally, the Page of Cups is actually somebody who often has their heart on their sleeve. Did he seem really, accessible to you? And if you're in a live reading like that, you can ask these kinds of questions and kind of explore it together. But most of the readings I do for clients are pre-recorded. So I might pull this and say, it's interesting. I do have this I was really drawn to this martini and this bartender image, and I'm kind of curious. This might be something to keep an eye out for. Maybe he has a tendency to drink to excess. That's something to be aware of. But in general, the Page of Cups to me is somebody who's very tender, who wears their heart on their sleeve. He might feel really emotionally accessible, and that can be really nice. It can be nice to have somebody in your life who is a good listener and who is empathetic and sensitive, and I'm kind of getting that vibe from him. So I feel like that, if that's something you're looking for in a guy, then yeah, that's really promising. So that was the physical, that was the tangible reality of Joe that we got from this card. So now we're going to go into the mental emotional reality of Joe's candidacy as a partner, right? And we have the Empress. And here's the second card in a row now where I've gotten this feeling of sort of somebody who is emotionally supportive, nurturing. I'm really getting a positive vibe from this card. Now, there is a flip side. What if, when I look at this emotional card and I think of this emotional position and I see the Empress, what if what actually occurs to me is, interesting. We have the Page of Cups, which is a very youthful energy. And then we have the Empress, which is a very mothery energy. And I might be tempted to, depending on the reading and what I'm energetically, I guess, kind of thinking in the moment, like what's jumping out at me in the moment, I might be curious about whether this is a sign that he himself is very emotionally nurturing, because again, this is our emotion position. Maybe he himself is very nurturing, or maybe he's the kind of guy that really wants this kind of a partner, who's really drawn to somebody who's emotionally nurturing and supportive. And that would kind of jive if you think that Joe is represented by the Page of Cups, because the Page of Cups is a youthful energy. This could be also an indication that this is a younger guy, which is something else that could be interesting to explore. And I might even say in a reading, if he is a younger guy, this could actually be an indication that he is looking for a partner who's going to fill a bit of that. And this isn't weird. This is common in partners, where you want somebody who's going to be very mothery or nurturing toward you. That could be something he's seeking, or it could be something he's offering. And how I address that in a given reading will depend on what jumps out at me the loudest, or what seems the most true in the moment, which is a little harder to quantify when I'm talking about how to learn to read tarot, but it's something that you practice. And you might go, the first thing I thought when I saw this Empress was that he's nurturing. And then you really want to go with that, right? Or maybe the first thing that I thought was that he's going to want a mom, like he wants a partner who's going to be kind of a momish role in his life. But I'm going to tend to trust the first thing that jumped out at me, not the second or third, if that makes any sense. And that's, again, where we're getting into intuitive reading. And not to worry, I am working on a full in-depth intuitive reading tarot course right now. So hopefully I'll have that out for you in a few months. I'm aiming for summertime. We'll see. But this is all part of how I read. So I want to, again, the whole point of this is to bring you into my brain. But the Empress, my main keywords for her often have to do with mothering and nurturing and creating. And that's something else, is that she's very much associated with the powers of creation. It could be that he's a very artistic guy, which also plays into the Page of Cups, who also tends to be kind of creative and artistic. So there's a lot of layers we can go into about, like, sort of figuring out what kind of guy Joe is for Sally. But I don't know if you'll notice, but what I'm doing so far is kind of saying, these are the qualities I feel like I'm picking up on about Joe, and kind of putting the ball into Sally's court to go, if that's something you're looking for, then this is really promising, right? If you're looking for somebody sensitive, if you're looking for somebody nurturing, these are really positive qualities, because we have this very physical, material thing. Just be aware of that drinking thing, because again, this was in the tangible reality, right? And then here we have that sort of emotional nurturing. So our third card is spiritually. What's Joe got to offer her over the long term? And we have the Ace of Cups. And to me, when I see the Ace of Cups, now the cup suit is all about emotion. And what I'm feeling looking at all three of these cards is that this would be a very emotionally satisfying relationship with Joe. I feel like there'd be a lot emotionally that Sally's going to get out of this connection. You know what's not on the table, and this is a whole other layer, but I'm not seeing a lot of fire and passion, but I am seeing a lot of comfort and emotional connection here. The Ace of Cups is a card for me that encompasses the entire cup suit, but also speaks to that really full, grateful feeling you have when you meet somebody who just makes you feel good. And in the spiritual world, which is the position of this card, I would say that her higher self, or what's in her higher good, is definitely to continue to pursue what's happening with Joe and see where it's going to lead. That's what I get from this combination. It's all very positive. It's all very optimistic. I'm not seeing cards that are throwing up red flags. The closest thing to a red flag was possibly this issue with drinking, which will be worth keeping an eye on. If he's somebody that tends to drown his emotions, if he's very emotional, that could be a thing that could be a problem. But like outside of that, everything here supports the fact that if what Sally's looking for is an emotionally fulfilling connection, something that's got a lot of support beneath it, then Joe's probably a really good choice for her. I hope that made sense. I just wanted to take you through sort of the different places you could go with that. So now let's try a different kind of question. Now let's say we have somebody named John. So John's sitting across the table from me, and John says, look, I've just been offered a promotion and I don't know if I should take it or not. What do I need to know about this offer? I don't know if it's ultimately what's in my best interest. Like, you know, should I maybe, you know, I'm not going to keep building on the question. We want to keep it simple. So Joe wants to know what he should do about this promotion offer that he's been offered. Physical, we have the moon. Emotional, we have the devil. And spiritual, we have the 9 of Cups. Super interesting. Okay, so let's zoom in. I have some immediate feelings about this. So when I first drew the moon card into the tangible physical reality position, I thought, oh, something's not what it seems. Because one of the things about the moon that's really true in a lot of the cases is that we don't have all the information. Something's not in the full light of the sun, right? Something's a little bit masked or hidden, or it looks like one thing, but it's really another thing. There's a lot of like dreaminess to the moon card, and it can indicate that there's something about this promotion, this offer for promotion, that is not what it seems. It may look really pretty on the surface, but there may be something else going on. And the reason I think that the illusion is that it looks good, but maybe deep down isn't good, is because of the second card, which is the devil. So we're going to talk about that more. But the reason I know that the illusion isn't positive is because this card is accompanied by not a great card, right? So I'm like, okay, interesting. So right away, something isn't as it seems. That's what I get from the first card. The second card, which falls into the mental, emotional realm, is the devil. And it's like, oh, wait, she's all bound up in chains. She can't unchain herself, but she's all bound up in chains. And the very first thing I thought when I pulled this with relation to this question is that, oh, there's going to be some kind of, and like, for lack of a better way to say it, I'm going to say like signing away your soul to the devil kind of thing. I feel like there's going to be a compromise, and that compromise is going to be that there's going to be less emotional, mental freedom on the job. Perhaps what's going to happen is that there's going to be a sense of having to restrict creativity, maybe toe the line a little bit different with this promotion. The sacrifice of saying yes is that there's going to be a loss of freedom. That's what comes out to me. And that freedom is obviously going to be in the mental realm or the emotional realm, because that's the position of this card. So there's going to be a feeling of like being restricted, of not having the same kind of comfort or I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to say surrender, but not the same sense of comfort, or not the same sense of expansiveness on the job. So there's going to be a sacrifice of that contented feeling. And that brings us to the spiritual position, which is the 9 of Cups, which to me is the card of fulfillment. And if I'm looking at this as sort of what is best for you overall, like not just money-wise, not just materially, not just mentally, but what's best for you overall, for your life path, for your trajectory, what is in your best interest, what would your higher self say? And the 9 of Cups to me is the card of gratitude and contentment. It's not perfect, right? But there's a lot to be had from this energy. This energy is very much energy of like feeling like you've got it all, even if you don't have it all. Does that make any sense? So to me, that's how I see the 9 of Cups. And we have this person floating on this cloud, surrounded by all these lovely cups, each with something in them. There's a sense of contentedness. And so when I look at these two cards and I'm like, something's not as it seems, there's going to be a loss of freedom, this conflicts directly with the 9 of Cups. So my feeling is that the higher self is saying, wait, wait, wait. it looks to me, and what I would tell, I forgot my client's name. What was his name? John? Okay. I would tell John, hey, John, it looks to me like this offer isn't everything it appears to be on the surface. It may involve a loss of freedom or a feeling of being restricted on the job, and that's ultimately what's most important to you about your work is feeling content. What you really want is to feel emotionally fulfilled and mentally fulfilled. The fact that the emotional realm would be negatively impacted by saying yes, to me, means that the advice from your higher self, or what is overall in your best interest, is to say no. And that's what I would get from these 3 cards. And I hope you guys kind of see how I went from one to the next to the next, going off of what I know about each card. I know that the devil imposes some kind of restriction or bondage. We can see that visually in the card. We know that the moon, or I know that the moon, brings that sense of like, something's not quite fully on the surface. We don't fully see everything. We need to really listen to our intuition, maybe, that could come through. But like the idea is that there's something not physically, tangibly on the table. There's something you don't know, right? That's what really jumps out at me from that. So at a minimum, if he's really drawn to say yes, what I would say is, if after seeing this 3-card spread, you really still want to say yes to this job, my advice to you would be dig deeper, listen to your gut, first of all, but also dig deeper. Look for what it is you don't already know about the offer. Look for the catch, because there's probably a catch, and you need to be okay with the catch before you say yes, right? And then the devil card would be like, and also be aware of how any changes to your freedom on the job are going to affect you, and weigh those appropriately with making your decision. And remember that it sounds like to me that more than accolades or even a raise, what you enjoy about your job is feeling fulfilled at the end of the day. And if you have to give that up, it's probably not worth it. And that's how I would do a reading on that question, with physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual being our 3-card positions. So I hope that gives you an idea. So that was a few different sample readings using the spread with this particular deck. I really do enjoy just how quick and easy it is to hone in on symbols and scenes in this particular deck. Really lovely. I hope this was helpful. The idea behind this is that I hope you are able to do some of these exercises with me. I should have reminded you throughout, but maybe try all 3 yourself. Like do a 3-card reading for Sally and do a 3-card reading for John. I had to keep forgetting the second guy's name. And see, based on the cards you pull in the positions, what advice would you give each of them about their question? And see how you feel about the experience and about the exercise. And let us know in the comments down below maybe what you drew and what result you got, and see if we can learn from each other that way too. The whole point of this series is to hopefully help build confidence for people who are new to reading tarot, to give you some ways to kind of build your skill set and try out some different spreads, play with some different decks, to start to layer what you know about what each card means with what you see visually on the card, and to really start to weave them together into a creative process while you're actively doing a reading to see what you get when you're all done. And that, my friends, is today's episode of Learn to Read Tarot with me. I hope it was helpful. If you enjoyed this video or you found value in it, please do all of the things. Click the like button, subscribe, hit the little bell so you're notified of my next video. And as always, thank you so, so much. And may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.